The idea is kind of the way for those who are new in the server, we like to present things and then have a discussion with them on how they feel, what's their vision around it, and how we can move around. Governance in general is a very new topic, especially with crypto. There is a lot of experimentation, so a lot of things that are going to fail, a lot of things that could potentially succeed. And our job as a community and as a protocol is to find what can work and dive really deep into it once it works. So yeah, we were super eager to see what we can see with Tokemak. It's one of the few projects we're extremely bullish on in terms of governance. We're going to, at least I'm going to share why I believe so and so much. And yeah, further down the line, there's quite a lot of things that can be done. There's quite a lot of value that we can bring to the protocol as much as they can bring to us, which is what I think is very interesting. Is when you reach this kind of very synergetic approach. Anyway, the idea is to not go maybe over half an hour to give you guys some time. We have a few European guys that are listening, and we understand that it can be already near the end of day, so we'll try not to take too much time. Okay, let me share my screen now. Yeah, we have people who need to ban. Okay. Okay, I think the slides are good. We're gonna start slowly. And I'm sorry about everything, guys. I like making pens. I know it's not fun, but we like them like this. Um, I think that there's a few really cool things that are happening with Tokemak, and that we wanted to highlight with Paladin. We don't have the monopoly on these ideas. It's just things we like to run by, and we find Tokemak to be a very elegant solution to a very complex problem in general. So to begin, what is Tokemak? Well, the idea of Tokemak is putting a lot of assets, especially stable and very liquid assets like ETH, like Frax, like DAI, and enable people to pair them with other tokens. The idea, and I think the biggest, or at least our biggest understanding of Tokemak, is that they are trying to automate the layer for market making. Right now in DeFi, right? But it will be done through governance. And I think that what is very important about this is that market making is a very lucrative activity. It's an essential activity of the market, but it today is very complex and it's controlled by a very small elite of financial people who have been making a lot of money for the past 20 years on doing that. What is really interesting is that as technology evolves, we can standardize a few complex things, and then they become more and more uh, affordable, less and less complex, and at some point they become not moot, but they just become part of the landscape. And Tokemak is the first step at actually seriously making market making simply an automated and passive thing. Passive in the sense that it is pushed towards token holder, of course, but the elegancy of the architecture is taking a very complex and very risky action and transforming it into an automated layer. So first of all, it is obvious that there is a lot of money in making this succeed, and second of all, it's really cool because it gamifies it, and that's a vision we share a lot at Paladin, is that we're thinking a lot about how to gamify governance. So we like the Tokyo a lot, and I think this is why we threw the Reactor Festival, right? We want to share the vision why we like them a lot. We want to attract more users to understand why the synergies are so powerful between Paladin and Tokemak, and we want to start building something together. So it's as simple as that. What's really interesting is that holders are going to control the flow of capital. So basically, what happens is that holders deposit into uh, a reactor, right, into one of the Genesis pool, their TLPs, the assets, and then with token, the voting power, they can basically determine amounts that come from this Genesis pool and uh, route them into another token reactor. So this means that we're basically converting liquidity direction, the control of liquidity, into governance power. And this is extremely powerful because it means that we just dramatically reduced the complexity to access liquidity, but also the concept of directing it. And this is a total shift in power because it means that as long as Tokemak is able to draw enough value, enough assets to control, they basically become a very important layer of power to be played because they control where the liquidity is going to come. And we've talked a lot. We only have a few slides, so this is not mentioned in the slides. But I think it becomes extremely interesting once Tokemak is also able to work cross-chain, because this means that you can think of your liquidity ops as a project. You can think of them through Tokemak. You can have your base liquidity, protocol known liquidity, or with users. And then, depending on your needs in different chains, you can basically use your token or borrow token voting power to basically control liquidity through chains. So let's say tomorrow Paladin is going to be released on Phantom, and we're going to be very hard on marketing on them for a month because we want to release a lot of things there. What we could do is that we could have see the base liquidity there, and then push with all of our token all the liquidity to Phantom, simply to keep pushing the liquidity that's there. And then for a month, once it's done, we can say, okay, it's going to come back to Ethereum, or maybe we're going to have a push on other chains. So it gives much more flexibility and at a very significant discounted rate compared to actually owning the liquidity. And I think that is extremely cool because not only are we trying to democratize market making, but we're also making giving it much more optionality. And what is going to be very interesting is what the people are going to build on top of Toke in terms of the options they have with this rented or this controlled liquidity. So that's why we're so excited about Tokemak. It's because it's expanding the breadth of optionality for liquidity. So, what are the core events? Why are we making all of this fuss, right? Core events, there's 5 spots, and what you do if you win one of those 5 spots is that you're basically going to be able to do a token swap with Tokemak, and once token swap is done, they will basically power up a reactor for you. So it's an opportunity for two things. One, you get out and you are able to talk with the committee, which is why we're very happy to see a few of the people from the Tokemak server here chatting with us. The idea is to chat about Paladin and what we could do with Tokemak. The second thing that I think is very important is that it allows projects to diversify their treasury and to get an opportunity to basically get, not on the ground floor, but early on into this opportunity of liquidity direction. And the other thing that's very interesting is that it also incentivizes Tokemak to work with these projects because they own a part of their treasury. In theory, this core event, it's the first one, is the last one. There might be others. There's 52 projects that are participating, so that's quite a lot. And we're probably, arguably, I would say one of the smallest, if not the smallest, among them, which is a very nice sensation, actually. We love being the dark horse. And especially in such a popularity contest. So I think there's something that's very interesting that we could also talk about. It's about bribes. Personally, we will not do any public bribes. We've said it publicly. We will repeat it. The reason why we're saying so is that it's a net negative game today. First, for the protocol, the idea of the core event is to find out the best partners Tokemak could have before its launch. So if you look today at Butterfly, if you look today at Silo, if you look today at Stargate, all of these are very synergetic, Paladin, of course, all of these are very synergetic products with Tokemak. They're building infrastructure for them, they're helping them in their mission, they're basically making Tokemak more efficient. But there's a lot more other projects that simply are not of any help for Tokemak. And the only reason why they might potentially be included into the reactor is because they bribed a lot of money. And I think that's net negative for the protocol because there's a lot of other projects that could bring much more long-term value to Tokemak that are not going to have an opportunity to do so. The second thing that's kind of net bad about that is that you're, as I mentioned, totally subtracting the value of long-term value creation for basically short-term gains. And I think that's kind of bad, especially because it allows this method to transition quite quickly into what we were basically is going to be liquidity direction. And liquidity direction has a very specific component where token holders are basically responsible for the impermanent loss that's being made on the curve. not the people who are depositing into the reactors, but the one who are directing the liquidity. Which means that if someone pushes you to vote for a pair and that there's impermanent loss, you are going to have to end up to pay for it. And this is net bad actually for the project, for the token holders. So I do think that creating a platform like this needs to be very well thought out, and this is something we've been working on a lot. But core events are super exciting, and that's why we decided to create a Reactor Festival, to make it fun. Everything about this should be fun. Because if we're really going to do it on a daily basis, directing liquidity, we should have fun doing it. As much as we like having doing governance, for example, at Paladin. Yeah. So what could Paladin X Tokemak look like? There's three different ways of seeing it. The first one is through purely our tools. What we're doing today with Warden, what we're doing with Quest. Warden is the boost marketplace. Quest is releasing very soon, and it's going to be the gauge acquisition system. It's not bribes, it's something a bit different. First of all, with Warden, we could basically rent out boosting power to Tokemak to enhance the revenue they are generating through their protocol on liquidity. So everything that's on curve, if it's not if it's not boosted, it could be boosted up to 2.5. That's why we're saying we can raise revenue by 250% for curve LPs. It's up to. It's because we can basically enable them to get boost for cheap if they don't have a VCRV that's locked. That's the first thing. The second thing we can do is that we noticed Tokemak has deployed a lot of T asset pair on curve, which is normal. Um, by being able to create quests for them, they would be able to basically raise the stability by attracting liquidity on them. It can be very powerful, and that would be a very good solution to at least just a little bit of liquidity between these assets. That's what we can bring right now on the table. The third thing that we have agreed is that we actually want to, we kind of have. Uh, when we say we want to crystallize the value of Toke, that's something very important, is that when you create an influence market, when you sell the governance power of a token, you're able to see how attractive the pure governance aspect of the token is. And today we have different values of ways to value a token, right? The first one is the speculative premium. How much is someone else going to be able to buy the token after me because of the value they think the protocol is going to reach one day? The other way of seeing it is how much could we value this protocol because of the revenue it's generating me? That's usually discounted cash flow models, right? And we have kind of two other ways of seeing it. How much is this token valuable compared to the liquid version of this token? That's the difference between VCRV and CRV, or VLCVX and CVX, or T assets and the assets. But they're also giving out cash flow, so there's pros and cons. And on the other side, we have something else that's not very much talked about. It's the governance premium. What's the value of this token? Purely because of its governance power. And it's kind of derived today of the cash flow. If you look, for example, at Curve, the base value of CRV is actually how much VCRV, sorry, how much CRV emission it controls on a weekly basis. I think that's something really important because if you look at it, basically Toke, the pure value of Toke, its governance premium is going to be how much does one Toke control in terms of liquidity. Because at some point it's cheaper to buy Toke and direct liquidity than just buying up the liquidity and controlling it, right? So by creating an influence market, you're basically crystallizing the value of the governance premium. And you're showing the market that there's some kind of floor value for Toke that's purely its utilitarian value through governance. And by creating an influence market, you're making that very clear. So this is super powerful because what we've been seeing is that the Toke price has been falling down, right? That's normal. The market is extremely bad. There's very little buy pressure in any token. And the problem is that there's emissions. So a lot of people just farm and dump. I mean, I would rather buy their assets. I will be honest. I'm trying to accumulate, but that's how it is, right? So that's what we can do between Paladin and Tokemak. And I think that's very powerful because we can make Tokemak more revenue generating, which means they will reach singularity faster. We can make it more sustainable by helping them keep the stability of their assets on curve. And we can make Tokemak more stable as with the on regards to the Toke value by making more obvious the actual utility of the token. All of this while keeping the right guardrails to avoid anything like a governance attack to happen. And I think this is an aspect that we will mention tomorrow. It's about governance attack and in PCP protocols that we're not talking enough, but I will mention this tomorrow. So yeah, that's about it. What I wanted to show you guys. I think I've already been talking for almost 20 minutes, which is kind of a lot. But yeah, I kind of wanted to end like with this thing. I think it's important to see it this way. If Tokemak becomes really as big as it's pretending to be, maybe one day we'll just say Tokemaking instead of depositing liquidity. Because it will be useless to actually go through all of these protocols and actually doing anything else than just depositing into Tokemak. So in the same way that we Google instead of saying we're searching on the web or we're putting it in the fridge, all of these are company names. Well, that's how you become so big that people just think about using US based layer. And yeah, I think that's something that's really powerful that could happen. So yeah, I just wanted to end on that note. And if you guys have any questions, if there's things you'd like to say, now is the time. Can either be through writing or you can just put out your mic. We're always down for any questions. And if you guys don't have any more questions, slowly we'll end the live stream. But we're just gonna wait at least 1 or 2 minutes if you have two questions to ask. And yeah, I don't know if Tokemaking is cheesy or cool as a name. We're not yet set on that. Remains to be discussed tomorrow with Craig and Archer.
Yeah, thank you all guys for joining. Like Piggy said, if you have any questions, asking me the AMA, come on voice. And I know that you're all aware that the raffle is ongoing. Once again, if you do not have the emojis in your name on Discord and Twitter, you will be disqualified. So that's all I gotta say about that. Just another reminder.
Oh, that's very interesting about the on our ties with other Tokemak partners. So we haven't been let to chat with Citadel DAO. I'm not sure we could contribute a lot to them right now. I do think on the longer term, there's definitely a play to do. Um, to be perfectly honest, we intervene on two very different moments with projects. Either at the birth of the project at the beginning to help them define tokenomics, help them avoid governance attacks, and basically chat with them how we could integrate them in the longer term. And then when they're more mature, when they're like Aave, when they're like Tokemak, when they're like Curve, once the tokenomics have shown that there is enough power to create governance war, that's when we can start building. I don't think it's actually wise to build from the get go at the beginning because, first of all, we're taking a risk, a significant risk in terms of time to be built. And the second thing that's very important is that building an influence market from the get go destroys the protocol. You need to have, for example, on the V token models, you need to have at least, I would say, 30 to 40% of the supply that's already locked for it to be interesting enough. If not, you're just creating a market where people are not going to bother even locking because they'll just say, okay, I can buy out the liquidity. So you have to push people first to the utility and then have the flywheel start running. Um the D2D, yeah, D2D is our jam. Our job is literally getting to DAOs and making them happen. But at a different layer than something like Prime DAO, for example, is doing. Prime DAO does it like on what deals should happen. We focus on how do we make the deal happen in the sense what's the governance format you should use, who you should be able to talk to, and then how much voting power do you need to make this happen. So you have to think this as the boardroom of crypto. We aim to create technological solution to make the boardroom of crypto more efficient. Okay, guys, any more questions? Well, if there aren't that many other questions, guys, I will let you have a nice evening. Enjoy yourself. And yeah, we're doing a large AMA that's going to be much more thorough tomorrow with the Tokemak guides on their server this time. We just wanted to do an intro on Tokemak for the people of our community so they could have an idea of what we were talking about and why we were only talking about Tokemak this week. We will be back to the usual ranting about Curve and the other protocols next week, but this week is for Tokemak. Enjoy your evening, guys.